and welcome to Conversations with Conscious.Enterprises. I'm Roxana, and today's conversation is so special. I am so proud to call this woman a friend. Maja Vujinovic, the founder and CEO of OGroup, best known in her career for introducing blockchain to General Electric while she was an executive there, has established herself globally as a thought leader in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. She speaks internationally about this emerging technology, female empowerment for businesswomen, and also about her intriguing past as a refugee and a survivor of a landmine blast as a child. Aside from being admirably successful in everything she does, Maja is also just an incredibly magnetic human being with an international background that gives her such a wide open perspective on the world. She was recently one of our panelists at Conversations with Conscious.Enterprises live at the One Hotel Brooklyn Bridge, where she introduced her newest venture called ShEOS. In this conversation, we discuss what it's like to speak in front of thousands of people at Abundance 360 for one of my business idols, Peter Diamandis, how having an incredibly international background has shaped Maja, how startups can grow by using blockchain, and trends in business and the disruption of corporate pillars, and so much more. Please enjoy this conversation, and please follow us and share on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're also on LinkedIn. And you can always find us at www.Conscious.Enterprises. Welcome back to the country, Maja. You've been traveling everywhere. I'm so excited to hear about everything you've been speaking about on all these different panels. I know that you were just at Abundance 360 with Peter Diamandis, who I'm a huge fan of. So let's start with that because I'm super curious. How was that? What were you talking about? And it's kind of a big deal. Congratulations.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. It's great to speak to you as always.
Of course.
So Abundance 360 is a phenomenal idea and the baby of Peter Diamandis, and I was really privileged this year to present. It was a phenomenal experience. Obviously, you are in front of some of the world's top inventors and innovators and entrepreneurs, so that was a privilege to really break down what Joseph Lubin, who is founder of Conscious, had to say about Ethereum. And so I came in after that and really talked about real applications of, or potential applications of, decentralization and blockchain in large companies, and what I've kind of done at GE. So it was a thrilling experience to present. It was a thrilling experience to receive lots of questions after, lots of inquiries, and people from all over the world really reaching out. It was 4,000 people in total that were watching that presentation. So I was definitely nervous, but one thing I always remember during presentations like that, which really, really helped me overcome some stage fright, is I always remember why I'm presenting somewhere. And it's really never about me. Right. It is about my audience. So I am at their service. And when we put it to ourselves that way, that we're at the service of the audience, then you really just take off the edge from yourself to some extent when you're presenting, because the attention doesn't go on you. The attention is suddenly on the people watching you, which is a great thing. So overall, it was a phenomenal experience, and I met some new friends and business partners.
So cool. Did you get to hang out and watch any of the other panels while you were there?
Yeah, one of the days, Peter obviously graciously invited me to stay for the whole thing day before and during the day of my presentation. And that evening, I unfortunately had to run to Davos. But the day before, I wasn't able to attend the whole conference, but I certainly did for half of the day.
So cool. What was your biggest takeaway from the conference?
I think I've been to so many of these, but I think what for me really was important on this one is people that were attending and the curiosity that everybody had there. So even though everybody in the room was quite knowledgeable or invented something or sold 3 or 4 companies or created something or has been a researcher or a leader of some sort, it was humbling to be in the room like that and to really see those people just continuously be curious and be willing to also share their knowledge. So I think that was my biggest takeaway.
That's awesome. Really, really cool. So for the audience, I mean, you are best known for bringing blockchain to GE, to General Electric. I know now you are the CEO of the OGroup, which I also want to talk to and hear about what you're doing there. But let's start with, for those that are kind of like myself, still kind of trying to grasp the idea of what blockchain is, can you kind of put in layman's terms, what is blockchain?
So there are so many ways. I laugh because lots of people, when they write me, some of my friends will say, I get a lot of questions like that. What is blockchain? And I'll just reply back and I'll say, I'll Google it, please, but because there are so many ways, in a sense, and there are lots of people that will disagree with with definitions of blockchain, right? And when you start to get into technicalities of these chain of blocks, essentially, which is really a word, blockchain, lots of folks would say that, blockchain is just another database. Well, it's not just another database. It is a database of a sort, right? It's a kind of an incorruptible digital ledger, right? It's a ledger that has a capability of transferring value, just like the internet had a capability of transferring information and disseminating information across the globe in a fast way. And this has a potential to transfer value between people, things, particularly like when you think of IoT and many different other examples, flawlessly, right, without an intermediary. Now you have what's called public blockchains and you have private blockchains, right? One of the biggest examples of public blockchain is a Bitcoin, right? And then you've got private blockchains, which are ledgers really that do have a central control system, right? Mm-hmm. And that are not necessarily, again, depending on who you ask, if you ask Bitcoin maximalists and people really who believe in decentralization of a current system, then they will tell you, the private blockchains don't even count. Blockchain is blockchain, and the only definition we have is a decentralized one, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Great explanation. And how did you integrate this into your role when you were an executive at General Electric? I know you worked in like emerging technologies. Was that always a part of the plan when you began there?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was part of my plan. It was certainly not part of the plan for GE. Okay. I've gotten into the space in 2011. In 2013, I was pulled into a really forward-thinking company by a really forward-thinking entrepreneur called John Betts, who started Noble Markets, and that is a very successful company today. He was he is an incredible entrepreneur, and I got a privilege to end up helping in the beginning in that company and really helping it get on its legs and scale as it's scaling today. And so I really had a privilege to enter the space quite quickly. In order for me to really see if this was going to go anywhere, I needed to test some of these technologies, and large companies have the resources and a large need to do so. So it was never in their plan for me to come in and just talk about blockchain, nor did I do so, right? The way I approach the conversation is the way I approach our clients today, which is we discuss something much more important, which is a question of decentralized web, decentralization of businesses, network effects, gaming, right, token economics. We discuss different business models that are going to be born as a result of exponential technologies, right? Because reality is that technologies such as blockchain and AI and other forms of machine learning and AR, VR, and many other things are really forcing mechanisms onto our current structures, onto our current businesses, and onto current business models. And so I was really intrigued when I came and worked at GE that there were so many issues that large organizations have, and the executives that were running these organizations have really tried their best to some extent to try to fix, but they do these endless innovations, and it's just innovation, and they throw money at innovation. As long as they call out the word innovation, then they're okay. But reality is they're not, and none of the executives seemed very open to changing the ways they were working, which is not to blame the executives or G and etc. or any other ones. It is really the system that we fall into. The reality is that most of these companies have quarterly reportings, so it's really hard to innovate in something such as blockchain that is very nascent, that its value proposition is not very clear. It takes a long time to do a particular pilot, and it takes a long time to really understand where one should be applying. And by the way, a lot of these startups that are in the space are really not enterprise ready. So it is very difficult. It's not an easy thing. It's not just to blame the corporates and say they don't want to innovate. There is some of that because people like to keep their jobs, but I think that is changing very, very rapidly.
Very cool. And how do you think that, how do you see the progression of people innovating for these companies that you don't think are, as you call it, enterprise ready?
The startups, you mean?
Yeah.
How are they going to innovate?
Yeah, how do you think that they can make it there in this blockchain world?
I'm not sure I understand the question. How are they making it where?
Like, how do you think they can make it to their next step or grow, or make it to the, how can they grow, I guess, in blockchain?
I think startups that I've seen in cryptocurrency and blockchain specifically that are focused on enterprise, right? If we're just talking about enterprise. I think, by the way, the government and enterprise is the largest kind of untapped markets. It's slow growth, but it is a huge volume. The way some of the startups are definitely not going to be successful is a whole mentality of, we'll just build something and we'll disrupt these organizations no matter what. Yeah, sure, that will happen, but that's just because time passes and things change by default. And so, yes, you will disrupt them at some point. I am more focused on effectiveness of how do you tap into the markets of distribution markets of these large corporates? How do you tap into the ideas? How do you tap into the whole system that it really is a powerful system? So I think the startups will have to really think about strategies of what is it that these organizations need, right? What do their customers need? Not even the organizations. What type of customer does a large organization service? And how do those customers want to grow? Where do they want to grow? Are we addressing that need? I'll give you an example. We're working with a really large known Latin American conglomerate at the moment. Mm-hmm. And they want to innovate and they want to bring all of this data analytics and predictive analytics and machine learning tools and blockchain and everything possible to their companies. But once you start peeling the onion, what you realize is that a lot of these executives have basic problems that haven't been even solved, i.e. they have very bad meetings. They have
bad meetings?
Data that is dirty, right? That they don't know what to do with. They can't even have efficient communication across the organization, let alone with their customers. They have errors of invoicing of billions of dollars that trap cash in the system. That it's not even machine learning or blockchain, right? It's simple automate, it's human error. And so we've got to ask the question, is it an investor or a startup? I think both have to ask the question and say, what are we solving for, and where is the biggest friction in the system, be it B2C or C2C or B2C, right? So we've got to go back to the question and say, what is the startup addressing? How are they planning to address it, and how do they want to scale it, right? One thing is to want an innovation in a company, but another thing is to really implement and scale that.
Interesting. So it sounds like also, so now you are the CEO now of OGroup, and it sounds like you're doing kind of across the board consulting, not just specifically for blockchain. Tell me more about, I guess, what you're doing with OGroup and what kind of services you are giving to your clients.
Yeah, sure. So OGroup is quite simple. We have 3 verticals. One is we invest, not just in blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but we invest in longevity, so medicine. We invest in machine learning and AI. The second prong is token economics. We focus on the nerdy part of structuring tokens. We work with large clients, really big names, and we also work with entrepreneurs who have brilliant ideas. The third part of the company is we really work on consulting enterprises on how to begin launching pilots. What I notice a lot in the space is there are lots of consultants that are coming in as so-called teaching organizations what blockchain is, but in reality, I think that model completely needs to be disrupted. It's a waste of money. I think organizations need to start launching small POCs and really rolling up the sleeves and deploying some of the smart minds that they have in the company to see how they can actually increase their revenue, how they can get more transparency, how they can get more efficiency, because they can. With some of these tools today in AI, machine learning, blockchain, they can have more efficiency in the system, and definitely they can uncover some of the trapped cash in the system. So those are 3 prongs. I'm also on the board of CoinDesk, which keeps me very busy, and I'm an advisor to a company, a stable coin out there called Reserve, and also a company in energy called WePower. And we are launching actually our own security token offering.
Wow.
We are looking to disrupt asset management platforms and a whole business model, actually. Asset management is one of the prongs of finance that is completely broken. The fee structure doesn't work for a lot of the investors, for a lot of the pension funds, family offices, endowments. It's completely broken, and so we are really trying to tackle that. So we'll be coming out with that very soon.
That's very exciting. How are you, if you can kind of give us a little teaser, how are you planning to disrupt that market?
I unfortunately can't.
Oh, okay.
So one, it's a security offering, so we can't talk about it. It's too much. Second, we will be. We have to follow certain rules and regulations, and when we come out of it, you'll certainly know, but not yet.
Okay, very exciting. Keeping us on the edges of our seats. Maja, what did you do before you got into blockchain? Before you were at GE?
Yeah, I spent over a decade in emerging markets in Africa and Latin America. I'm a lawyer by trade, but I actually never really practiced. I went into tech at age 26 and stayed in tech. I went into telecom and then moved into infrastructure development across the globe.
Very cool. And what was your inspiration, I guess, or motivation for getting so interested in blockchain all of a sudden?
I was in Africa. It was through Bitcoin, and I read the white paper a while back, and to be honest with you, I didn't understand anything I read, actually. And so I called one of the hackers I knew, and I basically said, break it down for me. And he did, and because I lived in places like Africa, I was living, working, I was paying employees, I was receiving my own salary, right? So I understood the pain points of huge interest rates, huge fees when you want to transfer money, the banking issues. And so when he broke it down for me and he said, look, Maja, imagine if you can just transfer money to me from your phone right now. There's no intermediary, and you're just able to do this seamlessly, and it just really clicked on me right away. And that's when I said, I do have to research on this more. And I started really hanging out with people that were mathematicians and hackers and folks that were really, really smart and questioning this to further depths.
Very cool. And you do have such an international background. I kind of want to hear a little bit more about that. Let's just start from, like, where were you born? I know you've lived in like a gazillion countries. How did you come to the U.S. originally?
Yeah, sure. I was born in what's today ex-Yugoslavia, in part of the Yugoslavia called Bosnia, I left when I was very little. My parents moved to the U.S. as refugees, actually, and so we found a new home in Atlanta, and I went to school mostly in the U.S., but some in Europe. I actually applied to a private university in Brussels and worked at the European Parliament as well during the time, and that's really what introduced me to emerging markets, and it kind of one thing led after another. I don't think that I would have had that much of international experience under my belt if I didn't take that program and actually went to that university in Brussels as well and worked for the European Parliament, because I got introduced to all sorts of international geopolitical issues. And so also part of my master's is in geopolitics as well, which definitely helps when it comes to crypto and also the just understanding the monetary policy globally. So I lived in, I think, about 13, 14 places in the world.
Oh my God.
And it's been a great joy doing that. It's also been enlightening. It also has been very hard too. I think
How has it been hard?
Yeah, and when we write set out for new things in life, and we choose paths, and we choose to go explore ideas that we find intriguing and we find interesting, there's going to be challenges, and I failed many times, and I have never seen failure, maybe because failure in my family was never looked down upon, right? It was always dust yourself off and continue type of thing. And so, yeah, at times it was really hard, but at times it was just celebrated. And I think I've tried to adopt that line of thinking in general. And so I think this international travel has enlightened me. I've met some incredible souls around the world. I've met people who taught me incredible lessons. I've seen the way Africans live, poor Africans live, wealthy Africans live, poor Latin Americans, wealthy Latin Americans, and so on and so forth in 5-6 other continents. And that is an eye-opener. It's painful a lot of times. It's absolutely joyful at others. I have to pinch myself many times to understand that I've actually lived that type of life. But it's also certainly been painful to see and experience certain things as well.
So amazing. I know every time I think about you, or if anyone mentions your name, like the first image in my mind is that you're just so global. I feel like you could just get along in any country, any demographic, anywhere you go. That's just something that's always stood out to me about you. How do you think that this wide global perspective that you have impacts the way that you do business? It sounds like you have a lot of international clients too, actually.
Absolutely impacts it all the time. I notice it with a lot of my peers and my business partners. My ability to relate to people from different cultures just comes naturally, full stop. It is very, I really do come from a place of empathy and understanding. You know how lately we are all reading in these magazines and newsletters about empathy and how to be more understanding and etc. Well, that's just been ingrained in my life. I think even if I tried not to be that way, it would not be possible. I think I just woke up one day realizing that is who I am, because
you had no choice. It sounded like you had to adapt everywhere you went, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And so when you come to other people's territories and you're doing business, one thing to really, really understand is to have respect for the other side of the table. And you get to achieve a lot more. And I've seen some peers in my business who have a very different approach to culture not succeed simply because of those reasons.
Wow, yeah. I feel like I could name 10 people off the top of my head that I won't, but yeah, I'm sure we all know those people. Very fascinating. And shifting back to the blockchain industry a little bit, how do you see the utilization of blockchain serving a higher purpose for society?
Well, that's a thorny question, and the reason why it's a thorny question, I have a couple of ways that I've seen this. I have used the conversation around blockchain decentralization as a forcing mechanism for organizations and groups of people to talk about things that they're not doing, to talk about building more ethical organizations. And there's a lot to unpack in what I just said. On the other hand, I have also used that conversation to challenge people when they launch, quote, these companies, when they say, we're using blockchain to solve poverty or to do something about our oceans or environment, etc. Reality is, if we wanted to solve all of those problems, we would without blockchain. And so I take up a big issue with people who use it as an excuse. We still have to consciously design organizations that are ethical. We still have to consciously design systems and processes that benefit a larger groups of people in a society. And so just because we have certain technological advances doesn't mean that they're going to be utilized in the right way. And I don't really want people to confuse that. I think people hang their hat on these tech advances saying, well, great, we just have now precision medicine, therefore everybody will be healthy. Well, guess what? If you are not eating right, and if you are not exercising, and if you're not managing your stress, and if you are working in a chemical environment, or if you are etc., right? None of that precision medicine will actually help you. So who cares that we've advanced in precision medicine? Does that make sense?
Totally.
So I think I do think that we are embarking on an age that is really fascinating. I mean, today women can freeze their eggs. We can also freeze our blood, by the way, and inject it later, right? We can, next 5 to 10 years, we are going to be able to probably have some medicine or a pill or a treatment where we're going to be able to live forever. And so we are coming onto this place where we do have to ask some hardcore questions. That AI, machine learning, and other tools are really exponential technologies, and they have exponential growth. Well, we are not. We are very linear thinkers, and we take a while, and our emotions get in the way, and they have to be addressed, and etc., and etc. And so I think we have to understand that not every tool that is out there available actually is a solution for a problem that a human being has created, and not the same way of thinking, right? Isn't Albert Einstein that said something like, we can't solve the same problems with the same level of thinking that created them, right? Or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so somebody might argue back at me and go, well, that's why we have these technological advances, and we'll just use it for that. Well, you can't just apply blockchain to refugees and solve a refugee issue. It doesn't work that way. Does it help in some instances? Possibly, if it's used correctly and not going to be abused. But does it automatically solve it? No. We still, as human beings, have to lower our egos and prides and really come together to solve those issues. And so I think if I can put something out there, which I think it's very challenging for a lot of people to understand, but I bet a lot of people can relate to it. I see technological advances and spirituality almost coming together. I think it's one of the big thinkers, right? That was was it a book, Singularity or something like that, that talked about that religion or spirituality and science are just going to merge at one point.
I totally see that happening too. Yeah.
Right? And so I think I'm fascinated with that, and we see glimpses and pieces of that. And reality of a human mind is that we can't see it until it happens, right? Because we are linear. But I would challenge everybody to really think about their daily work and how much are they relying on that tech, and how much are they actually forcing the processes and people and teams to change and just be better people to begin with. And if we start with just being better people, I bet we would get much further in projects and in our place in the world than just saying we're going to use AI or blockchain.
I could not agree with you more. It all boils down to intention all over again,
That's
money
right.
can be good or bad, businesses can be good or bad. Sounds like blockchain could be good or bad too. It's all just the intention behind it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest trends that you are seeing now in blockchain, or just from your business vantage point in general? What are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing going on?
I'm not sure that they're trends, right? Because it's such a nascent technology. But I'll tell you what's really fascinating that's happening around the world is in other places in the world with the US, right? Because here we take it for granted. We have a dollar and it works, our cards work, our Venmo works, our PayPal works, right? Other places it's not the case, and people are desperately seeking for solutions. And other places, the mobile phone is people's and families' life. And so you are seeing really cool trends, which I think I'm going to come out there, and I predicted actually a while back. I was in telecom. I started my business in telecom. I think telecom companies are going to become interesting platforms for a lot of exchanges and how people pay for things, period. I think that the trends, kind of, if we get really technical, right, trends would be that a lot of people are going to be focused on custody for cryptocurrencies and kind of immutability and irreversibility. That's getting really technical. Also privacy, right? Governance frameworks, that's really an interesting one, and this is for the geeks, right, listening, that can research more. I think also really developer tools, right? There will be so many new minds coming on in a workplace out of colleges, and kids being born today, and or in mid schools really today, and going into college, that are going to be studying this, right? So in the next 10 years, you're just going to see a boom in general of people trying to eliminate anything in the middle, right? And trying to converse with each other, are things that are going to converse with each other, and people want that convenience. And even, right, your ownership on your own data, that's a really big one, as I talked about earlier. Privacy, that's one I feel really passionate about, and what we can do with that. And I even predict in the future that the pricing that you and I will get, right? So if I'm looking at one dress and I'm somewhere, based on my data, that price will be different for you and it'll be different for me. So that's
already starting to happen.
That's right. Yeah. So, I can get into so many different trends, but I think what I do think that there's a lot of hype around this. I do also believe that you will start to see some enterprises really break through with new technologies and make themselves more efficient. So that's kind of what I'm seeing at the moment, just in general, answering that question.
Very cool. And how do you yourself, Maja, and OGroup see yourselves contributing to all these emerging things that are happening, the trends, the evolutions, all these things happening in the world?
Yeah, that's pretty simple for me and for my team. We are super curious about token economics. We are curious about utility. We are curious about a larger conversation around what's a value of exchange, and what's a currency. Also, we invest in are really cool that we believe in, like power and IoT and medicine, longevity particularly. So there is a lot of that. On the third side of the business, as I said, our consulting with enterprises and governments, I truly feel passionate about educating and opening doors to ideas to a lot of smart executives and brilliant people that are in these organizations and who really have given their life to some of these organizations and want to see them succeed. And let me take a step back a little bit, Roxana, because I do think that a lot of people will argue against large corporates, and I completely understand why. So I wouldn't want the listeners or viewers to just say, oh, she's a protector of corporate. Not at all, actually. All my life I've been an entrepreneur, right? But there is one thing that most of these large corporates that are going through massive changes, like G's of the world and Fords and many other ones, and Schwab's and etc., have been pillar of this society. And not just of this society, same organizations of equivalent of the same in other countries have also been pillar and a strong pillar to upper middle class countries. And so when people just want to simply destroy them or interrupt them or disrupt them, right, it's not the way to go without having a particular solution in mind. And I'll give you a reason why. We often think about disruption, but yet we don't think about future of work and how this is going to displace thousands of people. Another argument to that, a lot of people say, well, who cares? A new industry will be born. It will just take up these people in, and just like IT did, right? Right. I don't think it's the same this time around. We have exponential technology, and it's just Moore's law. And I think what I've seen at GE and what many people are seeing in the large organizations is very scary. There are thousands of people that are being fired. Yeah. Left without any possibility. And these are people that are not in their late 60s, right? These are people that are in 40s and 50s that still have time to work and can contribute. And so I really feel passionate about education and the large institutions and giving people an opportunity to exercise their brilliance and come up with new ideas and ways of how to entice employees and come up with new business models and new ways how to grow. So I feel passionate about education and helping organizations carve out these pilots.
I totally support you in that. I think that there just needs to be like a big corporate evolution that's kind of on the rise right now. And it's people like you, these leaders in various industries that are kind of, pushing the wave along.
That's right.
Which is what's so great. Shifting gears a little bit, I like to ask everyone that I interview how you value success. Do you consider your business to be successful today? Do you consider yourself a successful businesswoman? And how do you measure success for yourself?
That's always either an easy or a hard question. And the reason why I say that is because it's very easy in the West to measure our success by the amount of money we have. And that's almost a predisposed notion that a lot of people have. And that's how most people will judge other people and say, oh, he has a house here and boat here and he's able to do that and he's so successful. I really like that person. That is so typical what you will hear. Right. I've been there, and it's more stress. And I've been on the other side, and it's also more stress when you don't have any money. Right. And so I think I've been raised in a modest family who always had everything, but we always had to work for everything we have. And it's much easier for me to sitting here comfortable talking about this, right? And most people listening will say, well, maybe easy for you to say, but I think if we adopt this mindset of what makes me happy? How have I grown? Have I not? Or have I? Or have I given back? Did that make me happy? Did I only take last year and I'm still more stressed? Like, checking in with yourself is important. And so I came to a conclusion that how I define success is my daily happiness levels, my social life, my freedom, ability to just pick up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm going to Portugal to go surfing, or I'm going to go and spend time somewhere in a jungle, I'm going to go and volunteer somewhere, or I'm going to go and just spend 3 weeks with my family and I'll just work from home. A freedom.
Right.
And an ability to have that freedom, not success, and to be a really good person and to be open to learning and feedback, and to collect people like that around myself. At the end of the day, if I've had those experiences and I've had freedom, financial freedom, and the spiritual freedom, and the mind share and the peace to offer to others whatever they need in those moments, that's probably what I would at the end of the day call success.
So beautiful. And I would consider you extremely successful if it was judged purely on your mobility as well. You're always in a different country. What do you do, Maja? Do you have a regular ritual that you practice, some sort of wellness routine? How do you keep yourself aligned and focused on your goals for work?
It's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not this person who was always kept one routine and just had this perfect life. I think it's a myth. I think everybody goes through insecurities and everybody goes through down moments and everybody goes through challenges. But I will tell you that I do have some consistencies. My consistency is to show up and check in with myself. Show up and check in with myself.
And how do you do that exactly?
I write in a journal. I do talk to myself. Might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I am grateful for lots of things, and I do talk to myself sometimes. And I have positive affirmations. But I also, when I'm stressed, I own my stress, and when I'm sad, I own my sadness, and I won't let it get me down completely. I have a daily yoga practice. I split my day in half, and I go to yoga almost every day at 12:30. Not every day do I show up in every pose perfect. I cannot do that. I'm human. But I show up, and I work on my brain. I try to speak to different people. I have different coaches, different people that I admire. I definitely work on my brain and exercises that I can do for my brain. I celebrate. I make sure I'm surrounded by music and my body moves with music. Music is a powerful medicine. I grew up with a quite musical family. I played instruments myself. I was a competitive Latin dancer.
You were?
Yeah.
I love that. Was an interesting tidbit. I love that.
I have done all of these things that really have proven that music is amazing. And by the way, I do sound healing a lot of times. I'll go and get it somewhere. An amazing person I would suggest for everybody to seek is Alexander Tanu.
Yes.
He does incredible work with sound healing.
He's like the father of sound healing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Roxana, I think one of the practices I have is I speak my truth when I'm down, and I call somebody, or I'm with my partner, and I just admit that I'm down, and when I see something that I don't like, I say it, or I move out of that. I live my truth. I live the lightness.
So important.
And it's really important.
Yes. And you are very direct with that. You are probably really good at that for sure. What is a valuable piece of advice that you would like to leave for other entrepreneurs that are creating businesses with some sort of conscious intention? What would you like to advise other entrepreneurs?
Don't be hypocritical and assume that because you are trying to solve something, your idea is the best, and just don't be hypocritical. Try to really come out it in a zealous way, of course, in a with grit and passion, but with the word that also, I think the really, really crazy thing is, which is normal, entrepreneurs just move and keep moving, and we keep moving and we keep moving. But pausing and listening to others and being of service to others is probably going to further your business even more.
I love that.
So always check in and say, have I just grabbed, or did I try to help?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you so much, Maja. You are so just fascinating, and I'm so excited about everything you're doing, and I think you're going to do a lot of good for a lot of industries and a lot of people. So thank you for making the time in between all your travels and all your speaking engagements and everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Of course.
Have a great day.
You too.